to use. It makes our life easier. It makes teaching much more efficient. We don't have to print materials. We can just use document, sharing applications or any other, simple applications, WhatsApp, Google Forms, and things like that to help our life, more interesting and more enjoyable. Life becomes easier and more enjoyable with technology, but the way we teach remains the same. Yeah, we simply, in the past we used printed physical materials, but today we are using e-materials. We are using electronic materials. Yeah, in the past we used course books, physical course books, physical handouts in the classroom, but today we are using digital textbooks. And then we ask questions. Last time I used physical textbooks, but today or these days I'm using digital textbooks, e-books or e-stories, if you like. And then you start asking questions like, is digital text better than printed physical text? Like this. And I've seen a number of research studies actually that compare the two modes of reading using physical text and reading comprehension using electronic books, e-books like this one. Can I ask you this question? If students read a story from a physical textbook, and we compare this group of students with another group of students who read the same story using electronic versions of the course book, which one is better? Which one will result in deeper comprehension? Any thoughts? And then you can put in your answer in the chat box if you want to. Which one is better? Any thoughts? Well, up to now, the research tells us, empirical research studies tell us that for serious reading, if we want our students to read carefully, if we want our students to have deeper comprehension, I think traditional physical books are superior compared to e-books. Because when you read from your gadget, electronic versions of the text, usually there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of things popping up on your screen, and people maybe talking to you, and there's a lot of noises out there, basically. And because of that, students can't focus, can't pay attention to the content of the text. But for reading for pleasure, for recreational reading, there's no difference. Because in recreational type of reading, in pleasure reading, when you read a novel, a small amount of distraction is not going to, have a lot of influence on your enjoyment of the story. Yeah. There's a lot more examples that I can give you in terms of how teachers use technology, but the way they teach remains the same. Now, here is an example in the context of teaching Bahasa Inggris, teaching grammar, for example, a very popular topic among English language teachers. On the left-hand side is an example of a teacher who teaches a lesson on grammar, and the topic happens to be subjunctive clause, and the teacher will explain subjunctive clauses, verbally, using the whiteboard, using the traditional non-technological tool in the classroom, right? But now the teachers are doing exactly the same thing, but now they're using technology. There's a screen there, there's PowerPoint slides, there's computer and all that. But the way of teaching remains the same. Will this improve students' learning? The answer is not likely. This kind of teaching is not likely to improve students' understanding or students' ability to use their grammatical features for speaking purposes, because we now know that a lot of explanation, a lot of teaching of grammar is not very useful. Saya ulang ya. If you've been teaching language bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris, and you spend a lot of time explaining, describing the rules, the aturan-aturan tata bahasa to your students, hoping that the students will be able to use those those grammatical features, I think we may not be doing a good job, because that is not how people learn a language. Yeah. And in this case, even if you use technology, that's not going to make any difference. The students will still continue to struggle when they try to use that grammar. What are some of the reasons why teachers are happy to use technology, but the way they teach remain the same? There are many reasons. Point number one is maybe there is limited professional development opportunities. Maybe teachers continue to teach the way they do because they are not exposed to newer ways of how technology can be used to engage our students. Maybe teachers are very busy people. They don't have time to learn how to use technology appropriately. Later, my friend from Korea, Michael Free, is going to share with you, how technology can be used to engage students in the classroom. Point number three, I hope this is not happening, a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset means that, you believe that change is very difficult. You believe that the way you do things is already good. You believe that there's no point for you to learn new things. You believe that learning new things is extremely difficult. Fixed mindset. I think that's a very bad thing. What we need to do today is to have a growth mindset. The idea that every one of you can become better and better and better and better if and only if you try, if and only if you put in extra effort in whatever you do. Growth mindset. Okay, diulang ya. So point number one is about using technology, but the way we teach remains the same. Okay, so the question again for you is, if technology is used in that way, will you be able to improve student learning? Will you be able to enhance the quality of language learning in the classroom? Silakan dijawab, the chat box. Yes, no, maybe. And I hope many of you will say, probably not. Yeah. But definitely not yes. Okay, so that's point number one. Now we move on to the second point. The second point is using technology. And the use of technology is supported, is informed by a good set of general educational principles. General, kata kuncinya adalah prinsip-prinsip pendidikan umum. And that means these principles, these pedagogical principles are applicable for any kind of teaching. Mengajar bahasa Inggris, mengajar matematika, mengajar sains, mengajar fisika, anything. Good educational or pedagogical principles. And what are those pedagogical principles? There are many out there. And I will share with you just 5 of them. Now, these 5 principles are applicable. It doesn't matter what you teach. Now, these are general educational principles advocated by educationists, by experts in education. Now, these are the 5 principles that I want to share with you. Di samping yang 5 ini, tentunya masih banyak yang lainnya. But I think these are 5, probably are the most important 5 principles that we all need to make use of in our teaching. Yang nomor 1, itu bahasa kerennya adalah, we have to personalize our teaching. Yeah. If we are not able to help our students to see the connection between what they are learning in the classroom with their personal experience, then learning doesn't happen very well. So there has to be a degree of personalization, making your lessons relatable, making your lessons relevant for the different groups of students that you have in the classroom. And recently, one approach that is very popular, itu namanya adalah differentiated learning. Nanti saya jelaskan lebih lanjut ya. Differentiated learning is a very, very interesting idea. Now, the idea is that your students are different. If you have 30 students in the classroom, 5 prefer to learn in this way, the other 5 prefer to learn in different ways, the other 5 comes from social economic status that are different from the other students in the classroom, and they come with different motivations, they come with different learning experiences, and they come with diverse social and cultural backgrounds as well. And the job of a teacher, not easy, but the job of the teacher is to try the best they can to address the different needs of the students in the classroom. Dari istilah kerennya sekarang adalah differentiated learning. Later, if you want me to say more about this, please raise this question to me at the end of the presentation. The second point is this, the notion of engagement, the notion of engaged learning. Biasanya seorang guru itu pada awal-awal, terutama at the early stage of teaching, the first few years of teaching, the focus is usually on me. I am the teacher. I make learning happens in the classroom. Every student will have to listen to me. If I teach beautifully, then the students should learn what I've taught them. But today, I think people become more aware that teaching is not the same as learning. Teaching is what we do, the teachers. Learning is what the students do. Jadi fokusnya sekarang adalah pada the question of whether and to what extent your students in the classroom are fully engaged during your explanation, during your lesson. And some people have suggested that you are a successful teacher, you are an effective teacher if you are able to engage 90% of your students 90% of the time. Saya ulang ya. An effective teacher, a wonderful teacher, is somebody who is able to engage the students in terms of thinking, in terms of their feeling, in terms of their social interactions, 90% of the time. 90% of the students, 90% of the time. And when that happens, you can be sure that you have done a good job, because most, if not all of your students have, learned the best they can in your classroom. The next one, I think you will agree, the next one is known as authentic learning. Now, this one is another important idea in education. Very often, what we teach in the classroom, itu relevansinya sangat kecil terhadap keadaan di luar kelas, keadaan di luar sekolah. Jadi hubungannya itu sangat-sangat minim begitu loh. And because of that, students are not interested. Because of that, the students are not motivated in learning from you, because they know that what they are learning in the classroom is only good for examinations. Beyond examinations, they don't see any relevant use of whatever it is that you teach in the classroom. So as a teacher, as an educator, I think we need to be mindful of the importance of making our lessons more authentic. Authentic learning, the kind of learning that is good in the classroom, the kind of learning that is useful outside the classroom as well. It's not always easy. Yeah, it's not always easy, but I think this is where we are going in the future. The next one is feedback. Baru saja saya membaca sebuah artikel yang luar biasa bagusnya. Judulnya adalah The Power of Feedback. Mengajar, explaining, instructing our students is good. But apparently, research tells us that more important than the teaching that we just did is the feedback that we give to our students. The idea is that feedback can propel learning, that feedback can deepen and extend student learning. Jadi hanya mengajar saja tanpa feedback, tanpa masukan selanjutnya kepada mahasiswa, is not going to be very useful for the students. So feedback means that you need to sometimes reteach the materials. Sometimes you need to extend your students what the students have learned previously in your lesson. The importance of feedback cannot be underestimated. And finally, another important principle in education today, especially in the 21st century, is collaboration. I think you all know about the importance of collaboration. You can't live alone. You cannot learn alone. You need to learn together with the help, with the guidance of other people in the classroom or sometimes outside the classroom. Bahasa kerennya adalah knowledge is socially constructed. And that is very, very, very true. Yeah, you learn a lot more in the presence of other people who are more capable than you. And that is how we can all grow together. Jadi Bapak Ibu sekalian, ini yang kedua ya. Pada waktu kita mengajar apapun, termasuk mengajar bahasa, and the way we teach is informed, is supported by these 5 good principles. What's going to happen? If that is what we do, then we pick technology very carefully and we apply these 5, any one of the 5 principles, then chances are higher that technology can probably improve language proficiency. So the answer here is more likely to be maybe. Or you may also say, yes, but we need something else. Yeah, which is what my next point is going to be about. Saya ulang ya, yang pertama tadi adalah using technology, but with very little or minimal change in our pedagogical approaches. Yang bagian kedua tadi adalah using technology plus a good set of pedagogical principles. Yang ketiga, ini khusus untuk pengajaran bahasa, terutama bahasa asing. Using technology with the support of a set of English language teaching pedagogy. Okay. For this section, I'm going to share with you ada 3 poin ini. 3 poin, 3 prinsip belajar, khusus belajar bahasa. Bahasa apapun, doesn't matter, termasuk bahasa Indonesia. Yeah. The first one is language input. The second one is language processing. And the last one is language use. Yeah, 3 hal. Language input, language processing, and language use. The first one, language input. Language input itu bahasa keren begitu ya. Language input, bahasa sehari-harinya adalah nutrisi bahasa. Nutrisi. If you want to become a good language user, if you want to become a good speaker of any language, you need a lot of nutrisi bahasa. You need a lot of language input. Gitu. And technology, surprisingly, surprise, technology is an excellent source of language input. Jadi nutrisi bahasa itu boleh diambil, boleh diunduh, boleh di-download dari, from the internet and from many other sources that are available for free today. Landasan teorinya adalah nutrisi bahasa atau language input itu is a sine qua non to language development. Sine qua non itu adalah prasyarat, precondition. No input, no learning. If the input is small, kalau nutrisinya kecil, pertumbuhannya juga akan kecil. Ya, no input, no learning. Small input, small learning, basically. So that is essentially what language input is all about. And today with technology, input is just a click away. Yeah, there's a lot of learning channels, there are a lot of websites, there are many places on the internet where you can, immerse yourself, basically, surrounded by nutrisi bahasa, by language input. Ya, dewasa ini ada e-books, ada graded readers, ada TED talks, all free for you to make use of. Netflix, talk shows, TV interviews, podcast, or videocast, and all that. Semua ini namanya adalah nutrisi bahasa. Nutrisi bahasa itu harus tersedia dalam jumlah, in large quantities, and technology is just there for you to make use of. Ini contoh ya, beberapa video klip dari TED yang sangat-sangat menarik. Some examples here. Yeah. It's about business, about any kind of topics, about education, about religion, about ethics, about character building, about business, almost anything. This one is about psychology, about the power and passion, the power of passion and perseverance. It's a wonderful, wonderful video clip that all educators must have a look at, must watch this one. This one is also about technology. Semua itu namanya adalah nutrisi bahasa. Oke, poin nomor 1. Nih, apa sih hebatnya nutrisi bahasa? Ini sebuah citation, sebuah quote from this book, and this is the author of the book, and he says this. Saya baca pelan-pelan ya. Ini kaitannya dengan input. Good things happen to students who read a great deal. Read a great deal, membaca, itu adalah salah satu sumber dari input. Nutrisi bahasa itu sumbernya dari membaca dan mendengarkan. So this one is about reading. Research studies show they become better, more confident readers, they write better, their listening and speaking abilities improve, their vocabularies become richer. And their knowledge also develops a great deal. Their knowledge base expands a great deal as well. Mungkin baik juga saya memberi contoh ya sumber-sumber nutrisi bahasa yang ada di internet. Now this one freely available 24 hours a day, and there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories that you can listen to. Ya, input itu dari listening dan dari reading. And this one is listening, basically viewing YouTube videos and listening to the content of stories. Very, very interesting stories. Yeah. If you're looking for something near our home, Asia Foundation has made available hundreds and hundreds of books like this. Buku-buku ini semuanya gratis. Bisa dibaca online, bisa di-download free of charge. Yeah. You can also look at the e-Perpustakaan Nasional. I think they also have a lot of resources, a lot of freely available nutrisi bahasa that you can watch, that you can download, that you can use with your students. Sebuah situs namanya ELLO, ELLLO. Ini di dalamnya ada ribuan, thousands of easy listening materials, thousands of video materials that you can watch online, that your students can watch and listen to online as well. Available 24 hours, completely free. No charge at all, free. Jadi tidak ada alasan untuk mengatakan, wah susah tuh cari bahan untuk apa itu mengajar bahasa Inggris. Inputnya nggak ada begitu. I don't think that is acceptable today. The internet is just a great source of that. Now, if you are very busy and you don't have time to find resources on the internet, I would recommend that you subscribe to this website. It's called xreading.com. xreading.com. It has more than 1,500 easy reading materials that are available 24 hours a day, and the students can choose what to read, that the students can read and listen at the same time, anytime, anywhere. The only downside is not free. You have to pay a little. Yeah. Because this is a system that was developed by this person. And he has to pay publishers in order to be able to put a lot of reading materials on his system. Yeah. I hope you'll be interested in subscribing to this website. A number of universities in Indonesia, kalau tidak salah itu Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, kemudian UNESA Surabaya, and Unmul Kalimantan, and a number of other universities in Indonesia have already subscribed to this website to help the students. Universitas Negeri Malang juga. Yeah, it's a very useful source of input for your students. Yang pertama, input. Yang nomor dua adalah language processing. Now, the key idea here is that input alone is not enough. Input itu harus ada, but not all input is useful. Nutrisi bahasa yang paling baik untuk pertumbuhan bahasa itu harus memenuhi minimal 2 syarat. Yang pertama, bahasanya harus mudah dipahami. The language is accessible. And number 2, the content will have to be so interesting. Yeah. Again, input is important, nutrisi bahasa is important, but the second point I'm sharing with you today is that the nutrisi will have to be provided at the right kind of nutrisi bahasa. And the right kind of nutrisi bahasa will allow the students to process the language more efficiently and more effectively. In terms of the language, it has to be easy to understand, and the content will have to be very interesting. Seperti ini nih, seorang anak yang membaca dan tidak berhenti membaca sampai larut malam. The moment they start reading, they will continue reading until they get to the end. And that is possible when the language is, nomor 1, accessible. Yang nomor 2, the language, the content is so interesting that they can't stop reading until they get to the end of the story. I hope that makes sense, ya. Mungkin ada yang bertanya, apa benar begitu? Apakah ada contoh mahasiswa atau siswa yang belajar bahasa dan kemampuan bahasanya luar biasa from just based on the amount of language input that they have been able to immerse themselves for a number of years? Here is one from Korea. In Thailand, both are very fluent and confident users of English. The next person here is from Vietnam. Yeah. Now, these are students from 3 different countries, and these countries are very much like Indonesia in terms of the status of English, in terms of the way English is taught in the classroom. Itu sama. And I'm hoping that a lot more students in Indonesia will also be able to develop their English language proficiency by making use of what is available, what input is available on the internet. Yang dua ini adalah guru bahasa Inggris. Yang pertama dari Sanata Dharma University, dan yang terakhir adalah dari Universitas Negeri Malang. All these people speak English beautifully as a result of them, being exposed to the language, nutrisi bahasa, on a regular basis over a period of time. Mungkin ada yang bertanya, lah, dari input itu apa yang kita dapat? What is it that we learn from language input? Apakah vocabulary? Apakah grammar? Apakah dua-duanya? Grammar dan vocabulary. And the answer is dua-duanya. The grammar is there, the vocabulary is there. They are merged together. They are not separable. They are learned together as fixed phrases, as lexical chunks, lexical bundles like this one. Ini contoh lexical chunks. We'll just have to make do with it. Ini satu kesatuan. The words are there, the grammar is there as well. Tidak dipisah-pisah seperti yang kita lakukan dalam kelas. Ya, oh we itu adalah pronoun misalnya, will itu adalah future dan sebagainya. That's not how we learn the language. We learn the language by receiving a lot of language input, by remembering what we have seen from the input. More examples here, more examples, more examples. And there's a lot more examples here. This one is on me. It was lovely to see you. I'll be making my move. I see what you mean. Let me think about it. And there are many other familiar phrases like this that you will see, that you will hear if you are immersed to the language input, nutrisi bahasa on a regular basis, every day, every single day, for one whole year, and your bahasa Inggris will become very good. Mbak Putri yang tadi MC itu bahasa Inggrisnya bagus banget. I think she can become even better if she is willing to, immerse herself in a lot more comprehensible and interesting language input. Yang terakhir ini, poin yang terakhir adalah language use. Yang pertama adalah language input, yang kedua adalah language processing, because not all input is useful. Only input that is accessible and interesting get processed by the students. And finally, language use. Language use is very easy to understand. After you have had all these beautiful vocabulary and grammar and phrases in your head, the next part of learning is for you to make use of whatever it is that you have learned. Yeah. And the principle is that you have to use the language frequently. You have to make use of it whenever you have the opportunity. In other words, you have to make use of what is known as the again and again method. You simply have to use it again and again until you become very good, until you become very fluent. Like this guy on the left-hand side, ya, bermain badminton, berlatih menjadi seorang pemain yang hebat. Yang sebelah kanan adalah coachnya, ya. And the trainee on the left-hand side itu memukul berulang-ulang sampai akhirnya the guy becomes very, very good, very proficient, very accurate, very fluent in hitting the shuttlecock in whatever location that he's trying to get at. Yeah. In other words, practicing, the importance of practicing what you are already good at so that you can become better and better, more fluent, more confident. And now this is what happens after you have done, the same thing again and again. After practicing the same thing many, many times, your fluency in reading improves, your fluency in listening also improves, your fluency in speaking and writing also improves a great deal. And that is the power of language use, of using the language many, many times. Yeah, I think we know the principle very well, that people learn to read by reading, people learn to speak by speaking. Teruskan ini, people learn to listen by, yuk semua diucapkan. You don't have to turn on your audio. People learn to listen by listening, right? And finally, yang terakhir, people learn to write by writing. There you go, writing. Jadi 3 prinsip dalam belajar bahasa yang penting sekali kita ingat. Yang pertama adalah language input, language processing, and language use. If that is the case, this is the last question. Can technology improve proficiency? If the use of technology is supported by the 3 L's, language input, language processing, and language use, the answer is very likely to be yes. Yeah, and there's a lot of evidence to support this statement. Bapak Ibu, teman-teman semua, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've shared with you the importance of technology, and that technology is going to be with us, to be here with us for many, many, many years to stay. What is important for us to remember is that technology does not improve learning. Technology does not improve education. It is when technology is supported by a good set of pedagogical principles and a good set of English language teaching principles that we can expect our students to learn a lot more in our language classroom. So can technology improve language learning? The answer is probably it depends, ya. Tergantung dari apakah the way we use technology is supported by a good set of educational principles. Ini yang terakhir, silahkan. If you want to download any of these books, they are all available for you to download completely free, no charge at all. You just need to go to willyrenandia.com. Ya, ini nutrisi gratis. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Back to you.
Thank you so much for an insightful talk and also for the free gifts from Prof. Renandia. And so everyone, please raise your hand to ask questions, or you can speak directly in English, or you can speak in Bahasa. So let me translate your questions.
Yeah, no translation is needed. I speak Bahasa Indonesia.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's even better. Okay, we have one from Mr. Eddie.
Yes.
Mr. Eddie, please.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, direct question is okay.
Yeah. Thank you, moderator. Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Yes. Please.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, yeah, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, Prof. Willy.
Morning.
Yeah, it was a great presentation from Prof. Willy, yeah, because I got many inputs, yeah, talking about language inputs. Okay, Prof. Willy, to make it short, I have a question related to language inputs as what I experienced in my classroom. Yeah, actually, I know that one of the language inputs is the language used by the teachers itself in the classroom. Yeah, we need to use English as much as possible. Yeah, to give inputs to our students. But what I experienced, Prof. Willy, I always in a dilemma, dilemma. Yeah, because when I try to force myself to use full English in my classroom, most of my students will have what we call that misinterpretation and misunderstanding about what I am explaining about. And finally, I always use bilingual. I use English, and then sometimes I need to translate it into Bahasa Indonesia.
Yes.
Okay, I need your suggestions, Prof. Willy, as an experienced expert is in teaching English. Yeah, what do you think? Which one is better? To use full English, or sometimes we need to use bilingual. Yeah, that's it. My question, Prof. Willy. Yeah, thank you.
Good question. Excellent question. Excellent question, Pat. 3 points that I want to share with you. Point number 1. Please continue using English as much as possible in the classroom. Yeah, the key thing is use English as much as possible and learn how to make your speech understandable. Caranya, kalimatnya pendek. Use short sentences, nomor 1. Yang kedua adalah choose words that are easy to understand. And in bahasa Inggris ada 100-200 kata dalam bahasa Inggris yang sangat-sangat mudah untuk dipakai dan dipahami oleh siswa. So make use of these words when you try to explain things in the language classroom. Occasionally, using a bilingual approach is fine as well. Seperti saya tadi I speak bahasa Inggris, but from time to time, I will try to explain things, to clarify things in bahasa Indonesia. That is perfectly okay. But the third point, extremely important for us to understand. Even if you speak English in the classroom for 1 whole year non-stop, which is a good thing. But the theory tells us that that is not enough. The quantity is not enough. The quantity of input itu kecil sekali. Meskipun sudah tiap hari memakai bahasa Inggris, the input is very small. And number 2, the quality of the input is also limited. Quality ini bukan kualitas gurunya, bukan, tapi adalah jenis kalimat, jenis kata yang kita pakai dalam kelas itu sangat terbatas. So the range of language that we use in the classroom itu sangat-sangat terbatas. Apakah seorang guru pernah meminta maaf pada siswa di dalam kelas? Jarang sekali. Di luar sana itu hampir setiap hari kita mendengar people apologizing, people complimenting, and people expressing their thoughts in many different ways. In the classroom, bahasa yang kita pakai terbatas sekali. Jenisnya terbatas, jumlahnya juga sangat terbatas. Kalimat yang paling umum yang kita dengar adalah good morning, how are you, and fine, thank you, and you, and then open page 10. Biasa, kalimat ini tiap hari didengar. Jangan heran kalau siswanya juga bisanya hanya itu, gitu loh. Because the quantity is small, and the quality, the possible range of language that they hear in the classroom, the possible functions of language that are used in the classroom is also very limited. So we have no choice, basically, if you are serious about helping your students to develop their English language competence, proficiency, they have to do more. We have to do more. We have to bring what is available outside the classroom into the classroom. In other words, learning in and also beyond the classroom. The classroom is very limited. Yeah, we need to make use of what is available outside the classroom, and technology is just there for you to use, and technology is just a wonderful source of language nutrition, so make use of that. Thank you so much for your question, Pak. I hope I can meet you next year in Jambi, so that we can have a chat.
Properly.
Yes, over coffee. Saya dengar kopi Jambi itu enaknya luar biasa. Kopi Sumatera.
Yeah, you must try our coffee in
Yes.
Jambi.
Kopi Sumatera. Mbak Rini, monggo Mbak Rini.
Okay, thank you for the questions, Mr. Eddie. We have time for one last questions to the
Mbak Rini udah dari kemarin. Mbak Rini sudah, I think she has been raising her hand since yesterday. Mbak Rini Kardena.
Mr. Lee, I have one question
Yes.
for you in this occasion. In teaching English for young learners, which one that have to pay attention more for the students? That
Yeah.
give them language input and listening, or
Yes.
on reading, let's say, simple textbook for
Yes.
reading, or listening? Which one
Yes.
should be the
Yes.
most, or it
Yes.
should be balanced? Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes, a quick answer is both. But initially, I think listening should come first. Listening. Di Singapura, itu untuk kelas bahasa Inggris dari SD 1, Primary 1, all the way to Primary 4, itu hampir setiap hari itu dibacakan cerita oleh guru. Hampir setiap hari. Jadi, metode belajar bahasa di Singapura untuk anak-anak kecil itu adalah dengan mendengarkan. So the teachers telling a story, the teachers inviting the students to have an interaction based on the story. So a lot of listening, a lot of viewing, dewasa ini lebih banyak pakai video ya, a lot of viewing, and reading comes a little bit later. Yeah, listening should come first, and if you do a good job teaching your students or providing students with a lot more opportunities to listen and to view, nonton juga boleh, I think their speaking ability will improve a great deal.
I see.
Jadi dua hal ini yang utama dulu ya, listening and speaking. Ini lebih mudah dipelajari sebetulnya. Yeah, reading comes a bit later, and writing comes a bit later as well. So these two, listening and reading, are the foundation, fondasi yang harus ada dari day number 1. Day number 1, listening. Day number 2, listening. Day number 3, listening. And then gradually you introduce reading, providing students with a lot of nutrition, language nutrition. And gradually students will be able to use the language for communication. That's how we learn. Yeah, that's how we learn language. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Lily.
sure. Are you in Jambi as well?
No, I'm in Bukit Tinggi, West Sumatra.
Oh, that's even better. I have not been to Bukit Tinggi before.
You may come here. This is Jam Gadang here.
Yes, I will. Next year?
I wish.
Don't wish, make it happen.
Okay. Please come here, Mr. Lily.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Rini, for the questions. Unfortunately, we have to close these Q&A sessions from Rinandia. Well, thank you, everyone, for the question, and thank you so much, Prof. Rinandia, for giving us such as constructive presentations. We hope to meet you again at other occasions. Thank you. Have a great day. Be safe, and God bless.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, let me say that again. Well, thank you, everyone, for the questions, and thank you so much, for Renandia, for giving us such as constructive presentations. We hope to meet you again at other occasions. Thank you. Have a great day, and God bless. Thank you, Prof. Renandia.
You're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now we are going to move to the second keynote speaker. Excellency, distinguished guests, educators, students, ladies and gentlemen. Again, kindly reminder for all participants, kindly open your camera for better experience of this international conference for all of us. Now, please help me welcome our second keynote speaker, who is going to talk about digital literacy skills, instructions, and increased skill proficiency in digital age transformations. Is an international music education researcher, specialist at Central Zone State University, Philippines. He was a recipient of 2009 Classic Fulbright Scholarship Award to the United States. Finished his doctor in education degree in music and music education at Columbia University. He graduated school in New York, USA. He took up voice and choral pedagogy with Dr. Jean Payne from Juilliard School of Music in New York City. And especially for me, he was my excellent professor who taught me in depth about research methodology back then at Central Luzon State University for my master's science and educations. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Florenzi P. Ibarra. How are you? Kumusta po, sir? Dr. Ibarra, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got lost. Sorry.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Kumusta?
Am I clear? Am I clear to your end?
Yeah, you sound clear.
Oh, thank you so much.
Sir.
Yeah, I'm grateful. We're very grateful here in CLSU. And I'm so thankful for inviting me here in the conference. I believe that there are a lot of alumni here from CLSU are attending this conference.
Yeah, it's been a very long time. How's this CLSU, sir?
It's great. We are always busy for the world ranking of our university.
Wow.
As always, yeah.
Yeah, I really miss the Philippines, especially CLSU, the kind, polite people there, amazing culture, and also very delicious food there.
Oh, yeah, I also miss all these beautiful ladies and gentlemen at Jambi University.
Okay, sir. Are you ready?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I believe that you are going to assist me in the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, sure. I will.
Because I have internet problem here in my office.
Okay. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, our second keynote speaker, Dr. Florenti P. Ibarra.
Okay, thank you so much, Sir Azazar Fiki.
Yeah.
Can you start my slide?
Share it. Here it is. Okay, that's it.
Okay, so thank you so much, Sir Azazar. So, good morning to each and everyone. Good morning to all the participants here, including the organizers. Thank you so much for inviting me this morning. I just would like to give you a little background of my university. The Central Luzon State University is a comprehensive university that is located around 200 kilometers away from the capital city, Manila, going to the north. And we have a lot of students from Jambi who studied here at the College of Education graduate program already. So, and one is our very own moderator, Sir Azuzar Fiki. So, my topic for today is about talking about the digital literacy skills instruction and increased skills proficiency in digital age transformation. Next slide, please. So, digital literacy if you're going to, because I will be talking about the concepts of digital literacy and how it functions in the higher education institutions as to how to navigate these particular tools in the teaching and learning process, specifically in the classroom setting. So digital literacy contains a broad range of skills related to the use of technology that are defined in different ways by a variety of entities until a more universal understanding exists and agreement or how to define digital literacy skill has been determined. Professional learning opportunities for teachers that translate into positive classroom experiences for students will continue to bring equity issues for K to 12 grades in education. So, the following are the results of a direct research for the field of education's defining meaning of digital literacy skills like digital citizenship and research information fluency. So in this case, digital citizenship and research and information literacy are one part of the concepts that align for digital literacy and are the focus concepts of this kind of my presentation. So while valuing resources for this topic, it became more evident that digital literacy skills are defined differently by different authors based on the entity providing the definition. Based on this information, I expanded this presentation to include the following scopes. Next slide, please. The value and important, please go back to that one. So the value and importance of digital literacy skills instruction, the science of learning and instructional framework, the suggestions for digital literacy skills development, the research and information fluency, the digital citizenship, and the various strategic instructional strategies for teaching and learning. So, by evaluating articles and previous researches, I hope to provide you to better establish what digital literacy is so that professional learning experiences for teachers like you who are here today may be created in a way that will bring them more equitable learning experiences that can translate digital literacy instruction to the classroom. Thus, we would be helping students to become empowered learners and competent and productive members of this digital society. Next slide, please. So, the importance of digital literacy skills instruction. As global education moves more towards using technology in the classroom and preparing our students for success beyond the classroom, it has become more important to evaluate the how, the why, and when of ensuring students have digital literacy skills. Empirical researches establish that proficiency in the use of digital technologies is a critical skill in the 21st century and is necessary to prepare students for work beyond classroom. as what had been presented by our first presenter, Professor Willie from Singapore, that we are being asked if digital tools would really increase the proficiency of students. It can be yes, it can be maybe, depending on how we are going to use this. So there were studies actually undertaken on the importance of this digital literacy. So some of those are investigated the perception of teachers on the importance of digital literacy skills instruction and determined that ethical use of the internet and developing questions for research were necessary skills, but were not skills that were directly taught. Correct. It was not directly taught. And another empirical study examined the perception of students and employers and found that soft skills and technical skills are complementary and should be considered job readiness skills. Another study about this one noted that digital literacy helps students know when to find information and how to use it. And not having these skills puts children at risk when it comes to choosing trusted websites because we have a lot of resources now through the internet. So students do not understand how to identify an author or evaluate their credentials, run the risk of not understanding the bias that may appear in what they read online. So in addition to evaluating the online information for bias, students need to be able to evaluate to ensure the information they are reading is accurate. And we teachers have the very big role to play on this particular situation. So as students rely more on the internet to find information that affects their lives, they need to have critical digital literacy that help them ensure the information that they are accessing was written by a credible source. This current age or digital age, students are increasingly using the internet to search for information related to health issues, and they need digital literacy skills to find and evaluate relevant and credible online health information as well as different academic information as well. So next slide, please. So the importance of digital literacy skills instruction. Not only has research shown that digital literacy skills are important and that specific instruction should be provided to ensure students have a solid foundation of understanding. Research has also shown that students need the ability to transfer their knowledge and skills in digital literacy to any applicable experiences. In this particular situation, ladies and gentlemen, education standards, we are going to consider the educational standards such as the International Society for Technology and Education, standards for students, and we also have the Computer Science Teachers Association standards. These are some of the standards and all address the need for a student to learn digital literacy skills throughout their K-12 education program. Not only are standards being set, but certifications are being designed to ensure that the students have the relevant knowledge and skills for schools and careers and to become productive members of our society. Whether it is from a state, national, or international entity, digital literacy skills have become a requirement for the students. Such standards used to teach digital literacy skills to students establish guidelines and expectations as well for what a student should know and be able to do using a particular or specific technology. So while this research focuses on research and information literacy and digital citizenship, the broader scope of digital literacy as defined by International Society for Technology and Education includes these 7 standards. And I would like to share with you these 7 standards. Next slide, please. So the 7 standards for digital literacy include empowered learner, digital citizenship, knowledge constructor, innovative designer, computational thinker, creative communicator, and global collaborator. So in short, to make this specific, these standards empower students to become lifelong learners and who can evolve their digital literacy knowledge and skills as technology and the digital society evolves. So by empowering K to 12 grade students for digital life now and the digital life as it evolves, students can be consumers. So yeah, students can be consumers and producers in a digital society beyond the classroom. So we practice the digital tools inside the classroom and apply that outside the classroom. Next slide, please. For this theoretical foundation, so take note of this, that education needs to be informed by the science of learning so that teachers can differentiate learning experiences and ensure students have the knowledge and skills they need. In this case, so the science of learning is defined as an approach to learning that recognizes the value and the importance of understanding as well as using different methods and techniques related to how learning occurs, with a goal of optimizing learning for all. While many learning frameworks exist and are widely adopted, for the purpose of this presentation, the focus was on the art of science of teaching framework. So specifically, the art and science of teaching framework would focus on the use of direct instruction and practice, and deepening learning opportunities followed by the application experiences to ensure students not only gain content knowledge but are able to apply what they have learned. So the art of science of teaching framework provides also the teachers with the model that will guide the student learning and teacher evaluation processes. Because assessment is also one critical role of teachers in the teaching and learning process. So this framework directly relates to the learning method of for how to teach digital citizenship and research and information fluency skills for students' knowledge and the application growth. So the art and science of teaching instructional model was designed as an enhancement for the original 9 effective instructional strategies. And I would like to share with you, ladies and gentlemen, these 9 effective instructional strategies. Next slide, please. So the 9 effective instructional strategies include identifying similarities and differences, summarizing and note-taking. We have reinforcing effort and providing recognition. We have the homework and the practice. We have the non-logistic representations. We have the cooperative learning. And number 7 is seeing objectives and providing feedback. And number 8, use questions, advanced organizers. And the last is generating and testing the hypothesis. So these instructional strategies would offer an initial path for teachers to follow for engaging the students in the learning process. So actually, researchers determined that by using these 9 effective instructional strategies as a scaffold for organizing and implementing curriculum and instruction, technology could be used effectively to engage and instruct students in their learning process. Why? Because the art and science of teaching framework was built from the original 9 effective instructional strategies. The aspect of using technology for direct instruction, like practice and deepening learning opportunities, followed by application experiences, ties to technology being an engaging way to enhance the student learning experiences in the classroom. However, there were some empirical evidences that found out that there was still a missing piece where student needs must be taken into consideration during the instructional processes. That's why the answer in the previous, the general question in the previous presentation was, is the digital tools would really increase proficiency? It can be yes, it can be maybe. It depends upon the use of it. It depends on how you put that in the teaching and the learning process. So using data to drive or enhance the decision with the instruction provided to students can account for student needs. So by incorporating both the science of learning framework and the art of teaching into digital literacy skill instructions, I believe that teachers would be using established best practices in the pedagogy and research to meet the needs of a variety of learners, because we have different variety of learners. To help teachers to be prepared to use this framework for digital literacy skill instruction, professional learning experiences could be provided that address the framework and the digital literacy skills as well. So, helping teachers to experience the framework while gaining a deeper understanding of the digital literacy related to standards I have mentioned a while ago could be a way to help teachers prepare to integrate technology in the classroom. Next slide, please. So the problem would be, or the challenge would be, regardless of instructional frameworks used, standards to be covered, and subject areas of instruction, teachers may receive curriculum materials for instructional purposes. Unfortunately, teachers do not always receive the training and support needed for implementing the curriculum materials with their student population as chronicled by empirical studies. I think this is very true. So, empirical studies suggest a need for teachers to develop technical and pedagogical skills as part of being able to successfully teach digital literacy skills to students. When curriculum materials are not provided by the school system, so teachers must find resources and materials online to use for instruction, or may not provide instruction. It is believed that educators have a collective responsibility to teach students how to be responsible in a digital world. They need guidance on how to directly teach the related skills. We have the same problem here in our university, that when we had these online classes, this distance modular classes, we teachers, we professors struggled on how to get materials online. So it was likewise determined in the empirical evidence that teachers have confusion about the digital citizenship entails, and that there are limited high quality materials available online to help prepare teachers to teach these concepts at all grade levels. By providing teachers with curriculum materials that engage students in the learning process and support teachers' need for implementation, the digital literacy skills are more likely to be included in the classroom learning experiences. So, next slide, please. So, there are core components, and I would like to share with you the core components of the digital instructions. Number one would be the digital literacy skills development, the research and information literacy, the digital citizenship, and the strategic instructional strategies. Next slide, please. For digital literacy skills development, students today are considered digital natives because they have grown up with technology around them in their everyday lives. Those students have access to technology and are familiar with a variety of devices, they do not necessarily have the skills needed to productively use such technology. So this is a problem actually. Technology skills will help prepare students for the workforce because employers expect these skills. Though scholars have established the need for the skills, focus on digital literacy should not only be about the technology skills, but also about the use of those skills in the future. So research evidence likewise ties digital literacy skills to not only understanding the functions of technology, but the application of knowledge and skills using technology in a variety of situations. By helping the students what they learned Teachers are preparing students to be able to transfer the skills and the skills to future digital literacy experiences. So when students know how to use the technology and then can use digital literacy skills to create, to evaluate, to share, so they can become productive members of the digital society they live in and evolves the technology and as the technology does. Therefore, students need to develop and apply their digital literacy skills during school curricula so that they are prepared for the next level because digital literacy skills must be learned early and applied in a real world type setting while still in an observed area for evaluation of need and further instruction. So, what is the next one is research and information literacy. Students can conduct research through a web browse and find more information that may expect, but conducting research and understanding the results of what they find requires research and information fluency skills. Thus, students are influenced by academic and non-academic factors as they conduct internet-based research, which reinforces the need for teaching the skills and not allowing students not to rely on what they think is the best way to conduct the research. It was also determined that information literacy skills were valuable, but the skills were not integrated into the classroom curriculum, which limited the opportunities to teach the skills. Information literacy should be considered part of the core curriculum content because it is critical for students to understand how to conduct research and evaluation information they find. Actually, we are undergoing a lot of accreditations here in our university, and one of the recommendations of the accreditors would be to enhance our curricular program about educational technology that would address the present situation wherein we are now in the digital age. So further, students need instruction on research skills and need to have hands-on learning sessions, but that evaluate a connection to digital versus human interaction as a way for students to learn and apply information literacy. For students to have a structure to build or when conducting the research, they need direct instruction and inquiry-based options when learning how to search and how to scan and how to evaluate information. Next slide, please. Research, uh, research and information fluency are literacy skills that cross the boundary between print and the digital aid, the digital tools. The skills are foundational to understanding how to find and analyze information along with being able to solve problems and think logically related to the presented information independently and efficiently. Please go back, Sir Azuzar. Uh, yeah, that one. For digital citizenship, let's go to digital citizenship. Next slide. Yeah, that one. Includes a set of skills that students must learn and exhibit as part of the digital society. Digital citizenship is a tool that helps students and integrate knowledge, attitudes, and values, and must stay in line with living in the digital age. So in this case, to further define digital citizenship, one author, Walter, in 2020, included the importance of appropriate behavior while using the internet and technology as part of the participating in an online society. Others also discuss a variety of concepts that should be included when teaching digital citizenship, such as digital safety, media and information literacy, and digital well-being and social responsibility. It is important for students to gain digital citizenship skills while they are in school because students are likely to develop inappropriate skills otherwise if they are not guided properly. So while the need for digital citizenship skills is apparent and legislation is often passed to support this need, Some empirical evidences found that the enactment of legislation to require that digital citizenship instruction was to be offered did not guarantee that who should teach it or when it should be taught would be determined. It is determined that educators have a collective responsibility to teach what it means to be responsible in the virtual world as a digital citizen through the family and through consumer science courses, because this focus on the interaction of the people and the environment. So the understanding that digital citizenship is an important skill exists. However, teachers' support for confidence level in teaching and means to teach those skills are still the primary concern. Next slide, please. For strategic instructional strategies, ensuring that the students have the necessary digital literacy skills requires both cognitive and the technical aspects. So the importance and the need exists for teaching digital literacy skills. Teachers still find it difficult to teach the knowledge and the skills that form this digital literacy. So the barriers here have been studied to integrating technology into the classroom and found that a lack of adequate and well-trained personnel caused instruction to not be equitable for all students. In this case, so teachers must effectively use technology tools in the teaching and learning environment to help solidify the learning for all students. There are a variety of teaching models based on research and which have been implemented throughout the educational system for teaching core subject areas, but not for teaching digital literacy skill. Data is important in the instructional processes, as is the need for teachers to have the skills to develop and use quality materials for curriculum and assessment, for example, or to prepare students for college and future workforce needs. Next slide, please. So the implications of this is that the implication of the empirical evidences on digital platforms established that digital literacy skills are necessary for preparing students to be productive members of a digital society. However, teachers and administrators have insufficient resources and confidence to teach these skills. The digital literacy concepts are included in established standards for student learning, but are not seen as critical skills, as the accountability aspect is not evident. Therefore, the further assessment is needed to identify both the method of establishing accountability measures and a method of teaching and learning that engages students in gaining these literacy skills in a way that prepares them to apply these skills in any situation. So, in establishing accountability measures, it will be important to include curriculum materials and professional learning opportunities to ensure that teachers have the tools necessary to meet the needs of the students. The tools and materials for teaching and learning should include professional development and ongoing support for the implementation of these tools and the materials. Next slide, please. OSLUD and digital literacy. There are many organizations that have been identified what the essential digital literacy skills are that the students must have to be productive members of the digital society. All related organizations and legislative measures include guidelines for how students should be able to interact with technology, and in some cases, curriculum materials have been either approved or provided. Next slide, please. For a digital literacy action plan, understanding the scope and urgency of digital literacy is the ability to use information and communication technologies to find, to evaluate, and communicate information requiring both cognitive and the technical skills. Because there are a lot of definitions with regards to this context. So given the scope of digital skills and the urgency of digital upskilling, differentiation and learner agency are two challenging but key practices to apply the digital literacy integration. So adult learners facing digital inclusion should be given the options and agency within the classroom to work towards acquiring digital skills that are immediately relevant to their life, work, and educational goals. So, recognizing that the trips to the computer laboratory and my prescriptive digital learning objectives were falling short, I formulated the DLAP to implement digital literacy in a way that addresses the differentiation and learner agency. So, what is this DLA plan? Next slide, please. So the DLA plan or the Digital Literacy Action Plan is a plan students create to align the acquisition of digital literacy skills with their individual goals, choosing their own learning objectives, the resources, and the devices. The instructor facilitates the process by providing guidance or scaffolding feedback and class time for learners to develop and execute their DLAP. So it is helpful to use a digital skill framework, like to organize and guide the process of creating the digital literacy action plan. The ideal result of creating and completing this, in addition to developing the digital literacy skills, is to facilitate a process. Yeah, is to facilitate a process that would support adult learners in developing strategies and confidence that will assist them in lifelong learning and digital resilience as well. Next slide, please. So there are four fundamental steps, and I would like to share with you the four fundamental steps for this. The step one is goal setting, connecting digital literacy to goal life goals. The step two is planning. Step three is learning. Step four is reflecting. Next slide, please. The first step or goal setting, connecting digital literacy to goal life or to life goals. The first step is to include digital skills in a goal setting lesson at the start of the classroom. From my observations in various classes using this particular context, instructors usually practice this in some forms as they use a discussion of goals at the start of the class to get to know and motivate the learners. So the DLAP takes this one step further by determining what role digital skills and technology, like the internet, the device being used, using device being used for the internet, and the media and other materials, online materials, this play in reaching a learner's goal. So during this lesson, the objective is to show learners that digital skills are connected to all aspects of life. If we begin the discussion at the outset of the class, the rationale for creating a DLAP becomes clear. So this goal setting phase will establish the relevance of digital skills to all the learners. Step number two, next slide please. So this is more of the planning stage. For planning stage, after learners have identified which digital skills they need to reach their goals, they move into planning phase. This phase entails breaking down their overall goal into a set of steps, attaching a timeline to each step, and listing resources they will use, and listing resources they are using. So the instructor's role in this stage is the second step is to help students resources and assisting with setting a realistic timeline. The resources offered to learners could be a list of multiple suggested materials, websites, or a single recommendation. Again, so this is where having a framework and supplementary materials is very helpful. With or without the framework, I believe that it is important to build and maintain a list of open resources to recommend to students. When suggesting resources, consider the ease of use, the accessibility, and the planning. Next slide, please. The third step is learning. Once goals have been defined and plans are set out, learning phase begins. During this step, students will begin to work through their lifetime, utilizing the resources they have selected to achieve the learning objectives they have set for themselves. So I always include time without our normal classes periods for students to work on, discuss, and receive feedbacks on their progress. Since they will have unique action plans, each students will be working independently. Yes, they work independently. However, group discussions and regular check-ins will also help foster a sense of community during this process. So it is important to remember that each step in the process will be more of an art than an exact science. And that will become clear during this third step. So students will discover that a certain resource isn't working for them. They may find out what their timeline was unrealistic. And it is, of course, for that reason that teachers facilitate the learning experiences. The key idea is that the learning takes place not just in the achievement of the final objective, but through the analysis and trial and error that is evolved throughout the process. Yeah, the trial and error is very important because through trial and error, students will learn greatly. Keep in mind that the act of setting goals, gathering resources, and analyzing the usefulness and the validity of those resources are all critical and important digital literacy skills in of themselves. Next slide, please. The fourth step would be the reflection or reflecting. The reflection can be modeled around the first three of Carroll and Thompson's methods of differentiating instruction. These are the content, the process, and the product. So consider creative ways to group students and different methods for reflection. For example, I would like to give you an example. A group of students could prepare a group presentation on what they aim to learn, their opinion of the DLA process, and the outcome. Being a research professor, I try to always think about how I can incorporate the research skills and forms throughout the process. Therefore, depending on the group I am working with, the reflection could end up being a class discussion or a written essay. So during the reflection, I elicit their thoughts on the resources they use, like the content, and then how they apply the DLA assist them in the process and what they were able to achieve or their output or their product. So what would be the implications of the DLA? Next slide, please. So these implications of DLA after implementing this over time offers digital literacy development that caters directly to students' goals, models and the importance of the planning, and provides time and for learning, exploration, and reflection. This inherent individualistic approach requires a lot of effort on behalf of both the facilitators and the learners. Yeah, because in the research class specifically, this is very, very critical, the individualistic approach. If each student would be able to come up with a specific research problem, this individualistic approach is very critical for this particular method. Next slide, please. Okay, at this point in time, I will be connecting my previous presentation with the higher education practices in the digital stage, the impact of digital cognitive connectiveness technologies. So the digital connectiveness in the 21st century have been deeply impacting all domains of life, including the social, economic, and political. Such technologies of the 21st century have triggered dramatic changes in the way people interact with content, communicate with one another, and function in the society as well. Next slide, please. Higher education in the impact of digital connective technologies. Digital tools are offered as solutions to the aforementioned structural administrative challenges that the higher education institutions globally face today, regarded as affordance brought about by the digital connective technologies in the 21st century. The distance learning tools, the sophisticated learning management system, the online social networking tools, the virtual augmented reality, the open educational resources or the OER, and the massive open online courses are seen as innovations that contribute to enabling equal educational opportunities for all, assessing the quality of educational content, and support lifelong learning. Now, uh, this particular context, the very same innovations offered a solution potentially prove to be further challenging. The fundamental reasons for these innovations to act as further potential challenges are lack of proper policy and planning, insufficient resources allocation, shortage of qualified staff for instructional design, and technical support, rapid and constant update requirements. The HEI or the higher education institutions also act reluctant in their consideration for the integration of these innovations owing to the concerns such as causing distractions, plagiarisms, and cheatings. So for these reasons, while investigating how the digital innovations can effectively provide solutions to the challenges HEIs face in the 21st century, it is of paramount importance to examine the potential challenges and the ways to deal with these challenges they might imply for the educational landscape. Next slide, please. Research and development in the digital age. So, in the 21st century, the HEIs need to improve on the research and development capabilities, competitiveness, and interoperability between distinct disciplines, innovations, and problem-solving capacities. The HEIs are also required to transform into institutions which can adapt the digital age, have innovations and scientific productivity with their global vision. So while doing all this, HEIs need to integrate with a society operating with a sense of entrepreneurship when managing their human and non-human resources. This age we live in is ripe for unprecedented fundamental challenges and opportunities. Therefore, the policymakers involved in educational need to rethink the implementations of digital connective technologies, the challenges and opportunities they bring to the educational scene, while developing the value-added policies regarding the higher education practices. Next slide, please. Dimensions of educational administration in digital age. So the context addresses the learner, instructor, learning environments, and the administration dimensions of the HEI, and how the digital connectiveness technologies are impacting on these dimensions in the digital age. This presentation also offers as an implication to global educational system a roadmap for HEIs to better functions in this age. Next slide, please. The learner as a digital consumer. One of the fundamental elements of pressurizing HEIs to change is associated with the learner. Not only is the population of learners increasing, but also the learners' profile are changing and diversifying. Meaning to say that more and more individuals prefer to go back to schooling after graduation for reasons as professional development, needs since the qualities acquired at the schools are not not sufficient to tackle the problem faced for professional life in the 21st century. Therefore, one critical question that HEIs have to deal with is what it means to be an educated individual in the 21st century. Although there are different descriptions as to what the 21st century skills include, these skills are categorized into three main categories associated with the subcategories. Next slide, please. I would like to share with you the three main categories and associated subcategories of the 21st century skills. The first one is the learning and innovation skills. Number two, information, media, and technology skills. And number three is life and career skills. So let's go back to number one. So Number one is this includes the critical thinking and problem solving, communication, collaboration, and creative and innovation. Number two, skills include information and literacy. This is all about media literacy, and information and communication literacy. And the third one is the application of this, the flexibility and the adaptability of our learners. Initiative and self-direction, social and cross-cultural skills, the productivity and the accountability, the leadership qualities and the responsibility skills of the learners that we have trained. Next slide, please. There are essential learning outcomes framework based on this. So the first one is the knowledge of human culture and the physical and the natural world. The intellectual and practical skills. Number three is the personal and the social responsibility. And number four, the integrative learning. So the question that arises from these two frameworks is whether the HEIs are properly equipped and structured to develop the 21st century skills framed with these two frameworks. The higher education institutions also need to reconsider these structures, including the curriculum, the learning environments, and the evaluation scheme as well. In addition to the 21st century skills, the learner profile are also changing. You see, because there is nothing permanent in this world, there is a constant change. So the learners have already integrated digital tools in most of the things they do. The tools that learners use so skillfully in their daily lives are already reshaping the learning styles and habits that we used to have. Thus, learners begin HEIs with a different mindset that the generation before them. One empirical evidence actually discovered that learners today are equipped with the different skills, such as the following. Next slide, please. These are the essential skills of our present learners. Next slide, please. Learners equipped with various skills in the digital age. This one. Multiprocessing skills, which refers to the ability to multitasking, information navigation, and screen and image literacy beside text literacy, constant discovering new things while browsing digital libraries, and learning in situ. This is a randomized experiment in video streaming. So learners today are surrounded by computers, desktop, the laptop, the tablets, the mobile devices, the smartphones, and by the applications installed on them. So these technologies and applications are reshaping the ways learners think, behave. Learners today are more willing than ever to create online learning communities and take active roles in these communities. Next slide, please. Learners in the digital age. So learners in the digital age, please go back to one slide, please, sir. The previous slide. The learners. One more time. Okay, yeah. Let's go to the instructors. So the instructors, the advancement of digital connectivity technologies in the 21st century trigger another change pressure in the role and responsibility of the instructors at the higher education institutions. Instructors also are required to be equipped with the new sets of skills and qualifications in the digital age. The role of the instructor in the educational landscape is likewise changing. Next slide, please. There are actually different skills of the 21st century instructors. These are successfully aligning technologies with the content and pedagogy they use. Number three is aligning instruction with the standards, particularly those standards that embody the 21st century. Number three is balancing direct instruction strategy. Number four is applying child and adolescent development knowledge to educator preparation and educational policy. Next slide, please. And we have the using a range of assessment and strategies to evaluate student performance of the 21st century. Number six is participating actively in the learning communities. Number seven, as mentors and peer coaches with fellow educators. Next slide, please. And the last range of strategies to address the 21st century digital age and pursuing continuous activities that embrace career-long learners as a professional ethics. So, next slide, please. For environment, emerging understanding on should be addressed before dealing with how the digital innovations are shaping the learning environments and the associated changes observed in the learning environments in the digital age. In this age, in line with the pedagogical shifts, informal learning plays vital role in shaping the learning activities of the individual. Next slide, please. For technology-based reforms to address the challenges in the digital age, we have this kind of transitions from standardized learning to individualized learning, transition from standardized evaluation to specialization, transition from knowledge in the mind model to knowledge in external resources, and transition from content coverage to knowledge discovery model, and transition from learning to acquisition of learning by doing. So these are very, very critical. Next slide, please. So the administration in the higher education, which are located on top of the educational system, with their roles in producing and disseminating knowledge, are involved in directing the social changes brought about the digital connectedness technologies, and they are influenced by the social changes in return. So the administration in the digital innovations in the 21st century that impact on the learners, the instructor, and the learning environments also reshape the administrative functions of the higher education institutions. Next slide, please. Another one. I think this would be the last one. In conclusion, the higher education institutions need to utilize the digital technologies not only for the logistical administrative purpose, but also as a pedagogical tools for managing learning experiences and for the development of the 21st century skills that learners need to develop to better function in the society. Policymakers and administrators involved in the HEI should take steps in developing ethical, administrative, and pedagogical policies and action plans for the integration of the digital tools as pedagogical agents in the learning spaces. So before I'm going to end my presentation, I would like to go back to our first presenter, our Dr. Professor Willie, who says that it depends. Is it really, does this digital stage really develop the proficiency of our students? So for me, it depends on the policy and the curriculum being used by the teachers in the teaching and learning process. Much terima kasih Indonesia, terima kasih Jambi University and Jambi province. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ibarra, for giving in-depth insights about digital literacy. Now, due to limited time allocations, we have time for one last question or one question only. So, okay, Ms. Suci Fitriani, please. Time is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Diki. Hello, sir. Mustafa.
Hello, Suchi. How are you? I'm very glad to meet you.
Fine.
Yeah.
Finally, even in the virtual, yeah, hope you are doing good there. Anyway,
I'm very great. I'm very great, and I'm also wishing you have a great life for being a wife now, for being married.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking about the importance of digital literacy, I mean, as a teacher or a lecturer, we are struggling we are struggling to prepare students to proficiency in digital literacy, right? Like they are sometimes
are not able to filterize the information from the internet and doing the plagiarism. And what do you think about those issues and how we as a teacher or lecturer overcome those issues? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that wonderful question, Susie. Actually, it is a global, actually it's a global problem now. And I think, yeah, we also encounter that problem also here in our university and other universities here in the Philippines. And I think that the best way to address that is to have these clear guidelines and policies. We have to address this, the educational leaders to be able to come up with the clear guidelines, with the clear policies on how to address these particular issues on what is specific literacy that we're going to include in our curricular programs. One specific example is that to be able to address the issue on the plagiarism, our university, the Central Luzon State University, already had subscribed to the Turnitin website, and all the researches that our students submit, all the articles, all their papers would have to run through the Turnitin to be able to check the plagiarism percentage of the paper, so that we'll be able to protect the identity of the student as well as the institution, as well as the articles being used by the students likewise.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the answer, and hope we could see in person
I
soon.
hope also. I wish I could visit Jambi also to meet you in person. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Suchi, for the questions. And again, thank you so much for a very in-depth explanation from Dr. Ibarra. And we hope to meet you again at other occasions. Again, thank you. Have a great day. Be safe and God bless. Hopefully, you can visit us again in Indonesia, sir. Next time, maybe.
Sure, yeah. I am planning to visit Dr. Amir. I'll be seeing you there. Thank you
Okay.
so much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Excellency, distinguished guests, educator, students, ladies and gentlemen. Again, kindly reminder for all participants, kindly open your camera for better experience of this Future International Conference. Now, please help me welcome our last keynote speaker who is going to talk about digital and visual literacy. Our last keynote speaker holds degree in teaching English as second language and also teaching English as foreign language from University of Birmingham. He has lived and worked in South Korea for over 15 years and had taught in a broad range of contexts, such as public school, vocational, and also most recently at the university level credit. So, hello and welcome, Mr. Michael Frey. How are you? Still good morning from Indonesia.
I'm sorry. Good morning then, or good afternoon from Korea. Hello, apa kabar? Semoga semuanya baik-baik saja. Saya senang bisa hadir di sini.
Okay,
And that's all the bahasa you're going to get from me. And I hope my pronunciation was okay.
Okay, sir. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our last keynote speaker, Mr. Michael Free. Mr. Michael Free, time is yours.
Okay, thank you. You should all be able to see my screen now. If you can't, please let me know. If you can't hear me also, just let me know and I will make my adjustments as I need to. So good afternoon or good morning, as the case may be in Indonesia. Happy to be here or there, sort of. And what I'm going to talk to you about today for the next 40 minutes or so is two types of literacy, digital literacy and visual literacy. And I call these two linchpins for 21st century skills development. And since both my previous speakers mentioned their particular universities, you can see my university here in the background. That's our library right in the background, and that fabulous statue right there here in Kangwon, which is about an hour and 10 minutes or 15 minutes northeast of Seoul. So we're out in a bit of a rural area. So today I'm going to talk to you about a couple of different things. And I'm going to start by talking very briefly about linchpins and literacies. And then I'm going to spend most of my time talking about visual literacy. And the reason why I'm going to spend most of my time talking about that is because I've got a little bit of a shorter length of time than I thought I did, which is okay. And the previous speaker and also Pak Willie before him, they talked quite a bit about digital literacy. So I'm going to spend most of my time talking about visual literacy. I hope that's okay. But when we get to the Q&A at the end, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you might have about that as well. What I'm going to focus on is the word illustration. I'm going to illustrate some of the more abstract concepts and the theory and the research that have been spoken about already. I'm going to show you the things that I do in some of my classrooms that are rooted in, at least in part, in these two specific literacies. So why don't we get started here just by making sure that we know what I'm talking about when I say the word linchpin. Of course, linchpin, the second definition, is this thing, a pin passed through the end of an axle. I'm obviously not talking about that, a linchpin in that sense. It's also a person sometimes, and you can see myself with Pak Willie here, and you could very properly say that he's a linchpin of EFL and language teaching in Asia and Northeast and Southeast Asia. Of course, myself, not so much nearly as he is. And another version of a linchpin is a thing that is vital to an enterprise or an organization, something that's vital to an enterprise. And that's really what I'm thinking of when I call these two literacies linchpins. Now, literacies, I think you'll obviously know what the general definition. This is the ability to read and write. But more specifically, when we think of these literacies and other literacies, especially in relation to technology, we're thinking about competence or knowledge in a specified area. And we can see, if you look at the image on the right here, you've got this visual literacy in the middle, and then you can see the things around it that you need to be able to do in order to be visually literate. You need to be able to find images, interpret and analyze them, evaluate them, use them, even create them. And that might not seem important, but it actually is. And last, to use them ethically and cite them. The sourcing and evaluating and creating and interpreting all of this, this is what makes up visual literacy. And visual literacy is, well, we'll get there, but it's really important because we are so visual as human beings, and we also live in a very, very visual world. We do so much with what we see that it's very important that our students, and we teach our students how to do this in an effective and appropriate way. If you move over to the image on the left here, digital literacy, you can see we've got these C's coming up, these 4 C's: creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, communication. And then there's some other circles that some people add sometime, but digital literacy and visual literacy, they go right through everything, almost everything we do when we talk about these 21st century skills. Second, okay, so let's think about visual literacy. We've got this adage up here that perhaps you've seen. It's very famous in the English world. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And you can see over here these 4 C's. And you'll very often see these 4 C's as the most concise articulation of what 21st century skills are: communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking. There are some others that are added sometimes. I believe Pak Willie mentioned growth mindset. That's in there sometimes. Being a good global citizen is added in there sometimes. But I'd like to just focus on these 4. So we know what visual literacy is. You can look at that nice quote by Bill Kennedy on the right. So where do we see this linchpin in my classes and my classrooms? You see communication being pretty much constant. We communicate not just because I'm a language teacher, but because I do content teaching, no matter what I'm teaching. We really focus on communication. Communication, individual expression of ideas, pair work, group work, whole class work. And we also see this going through the students using the language they know, and they also find the language that they don't. But very often this is all focused on, and it runs through what they see, what they're looking at. The same with collaboration. They work together, they work as a team, they do this often, not in competition, which is important in the Korean context, because a lot of Korean students are taught from a very early age that education is a competition and they need to be number one. They need to win this competition in order to succeed. But what I try to do is try to get them to understand the value of collaboration by having them do this. And often that happens by working on what they see, something that they're looking at. Visual literacy is running right through the middle of it. With respect to creativity, I have them speculate, hypothesize, they take risks. To be blunt, they guess at stuff, they express their own ideas about what they see. So they're looking at something and then they're using these and developing these 21st century skills. And of course, at the end, at the bottom here, we have critical thinking. They think, they examine, they activate their prior knowledge. They do all of these things that we think of when we think of critical thinking. And they do this through what they see. Not every single thing in every single class, but very, very often. So let me illustrate this and how I do this. Some of the ways that I do this, at least. One way that I do this is that I use movie posters. Now, why do I use movie posters? They're a great place to start because everybody knows, everybody's seen one, everybody knows what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to get you to go and see the movie. You don't have to guess at what the purpose of a poster is. Not really. It's to get you to go to see the movie, to show you what type of movie it is, to kind of tease you and give you just enough information that you're going to go. They're great because they are obvious. You know, students, even if they don't know the specific film, they know what genre it is, they know what type of film it is, they usually know the story. I for certain, when I start, I'll give them films that I'm pretty sure that they know. But the question I ask them is, how do you know? How do you know that? So it's a critical thinking question. And specifically, when I'm using and exploiting visual literacy and developing visual literacy, it's to get them to answer the question, what do you see? So when you look at this poster, what do you see? the first thing, I give them an opportunity to look at it, and they look at it, and then I maybe point some things out. Usually I do this as a whole class. We talk about specific elements of the picture and how they communicate what the movie is about, what type of movie it is, who the stars are, what the star power is. So if we take this as an example, I say, do you know this movie? And they say, yes, of course we do, Michael. Or they say, no, we don't. And it doesn't matter whether they do or they don't. I ask them, what type of movie is it? And I'll get different answers with this particular movie, because some people will say it's a disaster movie, and some people will say it's a love story, it's a romance movie. And I say, okay, it's a romance movie. How do you know this? What do you see that tells you it's a romance movie? And they say, well, I see people. I say, okay, you see people, good. So what? Tell me more. What people do you see? Well, I see a boy and a girl. Well, okay, that doesn't always mean it's a romance movie, but that's a good guess. But tell me more. How do you know it's a romance between these people and not a comedy or an action movie? And they say, well, they're very close together. I say, aha, there we go. Now we're getting somewhere. They're using those visual cues. And I say, now, who is the star of this movie? And they say, well, Leonardo DiCaprio is. Because Leo's very famous, and my students, they all know Leonardo DiCaprio. And then I asked them, well, who's the woman? Kate Winslet. And they shake their heads and they kind of go, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. Even though she's still acting and she's great, they don't really know her. So we talk about this. Well, you know him and you don't know her. But at the time this movie came out, they were kind of equal. They got equal billing. So their names are both on the poster and they're both the same size. Okay, interesting. And then we talk about the boat. This boat, or ship, it's coming forward or up. I asked them this, and you have to analyze the angle a little bit. Is it coming just directly towards us, or is it tilting up? It's a very interesting question, because if you know the story, the ship sinks and the boat actually goes up at some point. But look at this line right here. I point this out and I say, what's it doing? And my students look at me and they say, well, nothing. I said, well, imagine the boat is moving, it's going up. What is it doing? It's going right in between them. It's dividing them. It's pushing them apart. It's a really great poster. It's a horrible movie. I don't like it, which doesn't matter at all. But we use and develop their visual literacy to help them articulate their ideas about this movie and about why this poster is so effective. That's a pretty basic example. Now, last year I was asked to teach a very specific and very advanced course in Korean language and culture. And this was done through film, mainly film and media and videos. So I had a chance to show my students a lot of very famous Korean films. And of course, because my class was made up of, well, one Korean, a lot of Russians, a couple of Chinese people, one Danish person, and one Mongolian, there's a lot of different cultures in there. And so we spent a lot of time comparing cultures. And one way that you can do that, obviously, when you talk about movies, you're talking about a visual, well, multimodal genre. We can again look at movie posters. And one film in particular one of my favorite films, is A Tale of Two Sisters. And this offered a really, really good opportunity for them and a very, very good illustration for our present purposes about using visual literacy and making, it's a more advanced level here, making more demands on their visual literacy so that when I told them and kind of explained what was going on, they had to use their visual literacy skills in order to understand what was being said. So we started with the basic movie poster, which has some elements of Korean culture, which is quite useful. But what was really fascinating to me, one thing that's really fascinating to me about this movie, and which really makes it an excellent example for us today, is that if you look at the English version of the poster and the Korean version of the poster, they're very, very different in certain key ways. And you can only really understand them by, we have to do some linguistic language analysis, but you can only really understand them when you use that together with visual analysis. Now, I have to tell you, just to warn you, this is a horror film, and the next couple of slides, they've got some horror film imagery in them. There's a little bit of blood, or maybe a lot. It's not extraordinarily violent, so don't worry. But if that bothers you, you can look away and just listen to me. It's not particularly extreme, but it can be a bit jarring if you don't expect it. So you can see that in both the English poster on the left and the Korean poster on the right, the basic image is the same. And if you looked at the Chinese version of the poster as well, they have a version which is essentially the same. I don't know if this was released in Indonesia or not, or if the poster was the same or not, but you can see it's basically the same. And we talked about this a little bit. This type of photograph with the parents standing behind the two children and the two children are seated is a very typical photo, the family photo. It's very, very common in Korea. And you'll have ones that have an extended family, and you'll have one that just has the family that's in your house. But it's very, very common. And of course, the people who designed the poster have designed the poster in this way on purpose. It's quite deliberate that they've used that cultural trope as a background. Now, when we look at these posters in more detail, and this was done via a lecture by me. I wasn't asking them to figure this out on their own, because culturally they wouldn't catch the clues here. So this was a lecture delivery. We have number one, which you can't read here, but it's over here. The tagline is "Every family has its dark secrets." So it's telling us the genre a little bit, as if we don't know already. You can see down here, if the image was higher quality, you could see it. The Korean title is in red. This is significant because in Korea, at least traditionally, when someone died, their name was entered in the family registry, and in other places in red. So red, especially in conjunction with names, it means it's very, very strongly connected with death. You can see some other things here. Over here, number 3, you can see the father's hand it's in the wrong place. It should be over here. Why is it over here? What are they trying to tell us? If you watch the movie, you begin to understand the father is distanced from everybody else. He's not touching really anybody except, his wife, who is the new mother-in-law. You can look at the comparative body positions of the two sisters. One is, I mean, is she dead? We kind of think that she is, or maybe she's sleeping. We're pretty sure she's dead, as opposed to the other sister who's sitting and she's very rigid. She's very stiff. You can notice the connection of the three women. You can notice that the stepmother's hands, the elder woman's hands there are on her shoulders. And then she's also holding hands with her sisters. These visual elements that you see in this poster are extraordinarily significant once you watch the movie. Now, I don't have time to go in and tell you the whole movie, but they're significant. When you watch the movie and then you go back and you look at this poster, you go, aha, there's so many little hints in there by very, very subtle things. Where this gets really interesting for me, or continues to be interesting, is when you look at the Korean poster. Basically the same image, the same things are going on, right? Well, not quite. The tagline is different. Uri 집에 놀러 오세요. Come over to our house or my house. It would be our house. The Uri is a little bit of a strange pronoun in Korean. And the tagline here between the two girls is 가족 괴담, which translates as a family ghost story. Now, wait a minute. If we go back here, it says every family has its dark secrets. So why are these things different? Well, they're different because when you look at the titles here, the title in Korean is Janghwa Hongnyeon, the story, which literally translates as the story of Janghwa and Hongnyeon. And this is a very famous folktale in Korean about two sisters, and it's very tragic. It's kind of like one of the Grimm's Brothers fairy tales that we see from out of Western Europe. It's not very nice. It's not very polite. It's yucky. But the relevant point is that this story is very, very famous. It's like saying to a European or a North American person, Cinderella or Snow White. They know the story. Non-Koreans, though, they have no chance of knowing that story, or it's very, very remote. So they get a bit of a different title, which I think just is kind of an alliteration to A Tale of Two Cities, but it doesn't work quite as well. But here they can say it's a family ghost story in Korean because all the Koreans are going to know that. But for our purposes, for visual literacy, probably the most important is look at the positioning of different things and what does that mean? Now, in this case, I have to explain it to the students because culturally they won't quite get there. We don't have that kind of time, but they needed to use the visual literacy they had, and I helped them along the way, and it worked. They quite enjoyed it. They didn't all like the movie, but they quite enjoyed the discussion. What else do I do here for visual literacy? Well, one of the favorite things that I do and I use in my classes, and I not only have them do analysis of these things, but in some classes, if we have time, I get them to make them, to actually create them. I talk about infographics. Now, I hope you'll forgive me for this, but I made up a quote myself. Infographics are everywhere, and you should automatically trust them nowhere. I think this is a pretty decent quote because they are everywhere. When you go on the internet, which is where your students are going to be a lot of the time, they're going to see infographics. And they need to know how to analyze them and how to deconstruct them. And so we talk about them. We take infographics, we take good examples of infographics and bad examples of infographics, and we look at them. And I developed the students' visual literacy by talking about certain elements that you see. We talk about the type of font that is used and the size of font that is used. Generally speaking, the bigger the font, the more important something is. Sometimes there's text, sometimes there's not. But if you have big text, chances are it's more important. We talk about the position of things. Depending on how these things are visually organized, maybe the important information is at the top. Maybe the central idea has things that are equally relate to it, as in this, this template here that we see with the light bulb in the middle. We talk about color, which is interesting. We talk about clip art. We talk about shapes, and especially arrows, because if you think about infographics, there are so many of them that have little flow charts, or they're pointing in different directions. Here you don't really have arrows, but you kind of have them a little bit, or maybe they're just radiating outwards here. And we talk about numbers, especially percentages. We talk about how these different things are used, and we go through, as I said, good examples that are clear and are deliberately, logically organized, and we look at bad ones where there's too much information or too much text, or the colors are strange, or the colors don't work, or there's only one color. And the students, as they do with the movie posters, they know a lot of the time when they're looking at an infographic that's good, they know it's good. When they look at an infographic that's bad, they know it's bad, but I ask them the same question. How do you know that? And the way to get them to be able to articulate that, whether they're articulating it in their L1 or English or whatever, is to develop their visual literacy, to talk about positions and colors and numbers and font sizes. And we do that, and I do that repeatedly in different ways. It's not just a standalone lesson where we just use visual literacy once. We'll do it again and again and again. Hopefully not in a boring way. And as I said, I sometimes get them to actually make infographics, which takes them from the other end. And of course, at the bottom here, one of the most important things we talk about, which was mentioned in an earlier presentation, is we talk about sources of information. We talk about some of the things that you maybe don't see on an infographic, and that being important. If there's no sources given for the information, it doesn't matter how pretty the infographic is. If you don't have sources given, if you can't check that information, you shouldn't automatically trust them, because people are putting out information and misinformation and disinformation, and they're trying to manipulate you sometimes, not always, sometimes for whatever reason. And our students need to know that. That's critical thinking. That's visual literacy right there. And we do this via the things they see, and we get them to articulate their thoughts and collaborate and think critically and do all of these 4 C's via the things that they're looking at, via images. I'm a really big fan of arts, visual arts, and
Recording
painting,
stopped.
and especially neoclassical art for developing people's visual literacy. Neoclassical art, if you don't know, is a style of painting and art that harken back to classical Greece. And neoclassical paintings, well, they tend to look a little bit like this. They kind of look
Recording
like
in progress.
They kind of look like a still from a movie here. You've got very declamatory postures, and it's kind of exaggerated here. And what I do is I give the students a painting and I let them look at it. I say, okay, here's a painting, look at it. And they said, teacher, we don't know what's going on. Well, okay, tell me what's going on. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's discover the story, or sometimes I refer to it as uncovering the story. And here, in case you're interested, the story is Erasistratus discovering the cause of Antioch's disease by Jacques-Louis David of 1774. I don't tell people the title of this painting, usually my students, because they run away, because it's quite something, isn't it? So they examine the painting in general. They just look at what they're seeing. They get acclimatized to it. I give them a little bit of time. And then I have them work in pairs or small groups, and they focus on certain details. And I help them here. I nudge them if they can't find them. I kind of point to, to this lady over here and what's going on here, and this lady who's a little bit adumbrated. I'm not sure why. This lady over here, and who is this guy who's dressed in red? And what I want them to do here is try to speculate and guess and determine the attitudes or the emotional states of the various characters here. Who is this person? What is he doing? What's going on? Who's this guy in the background? Maybe. Who's this person? Who's this guy? Who are they? So they look at certain elements of things. They look at how people are dressed. They look at their postures, and they speculate and hypothesize as to what's going on. We get together as a whole class then, and we talk about this story, not in a narrative way, but to try to figure out what the main points of the story is. And here, they almost always, they get close. They don't usually get the whole story right, but they get the general gist. He's pointing at her. She's done something. He's also looking at her. He's going, what's going on? This lady, who I'm sorry you can't see here, who is quite obviously a maid servant of this lady, looks so excited. So why does she look excited? Why does he look sad? Why is he pointing at the woman? Why is she looking down? What's going on? Well, if you know the story, this person got quite ill. This is Antioch, and this is his dad. And he got sick, and no one knew why. No one knew why he was sick. So they got the doctor, and yes, this is what doctors looked like back then. Does it matter that my students don't know that particular cultural fact? Nope, not at all. So he's pointing at her. So they called the doctor to say, hey, doc, what's wrong with this guy? And he can't figure it out, and he can't figure it out, and he can't figure it out. And finally, in walks this lady, and he gets sick again. And the doc says, hey, it's you did it. And it turns out that he's in love with this woman.
Recording stopped.
He's in love with her.
Recording in progress.
Fine, he's in love with her. What? That's okay, right? Isn't it? Not really, because that's this man's wife. It's his mother-in-law, and that's why he's sick. And people say, wow, Michael, that's a crazy story. Is that real? No, it's not real. Not really. But they use the visual cues. They use what they see. They speculate. They guess. They use critical thinking. They work together with each other. They collaborate via what they see to come to some conclusion. Does it matter they didn't get the right story? Not one bit. So I've only got a few minutes left, but I did want to spend at least a little minute talking about digital literacy. And I really like this quote by Kevin Honeycutt here, which tells us something about the importance of digital literacy, of having students who can not only manipulate the ICT tools that they have in a classroom context, but who can go out into the world and actually use things. Now, my extraordinarily concise version of what I do is just right here. So I'm running out of time a little bit, so I'm going to be very quick.
Recording in progress.
Q&A. How do I use technology? How do I employ my own digital literacy as a teacher? Frequently, I do it a lot, and conscientiously. I don't just use technology and my own digital literacy every chance I get, because it doesn't make sense. And I believe it goes back to something that Pak Willy said earlier, where our pedagogical purpose comes first. They call them ICT tools for a reason. They're tools. They're not the end of the game. They're a way to get our students to a different place so that they can manipulate and exist in a very technological world. So that's how I use them. But more importantly, I think, is how do I have my students use technology? And I've got 4 sentences here. I try to get them out of Korea. Now, this will sound maybe strange. So let me ask you, do you know this logo? If I showed you the Nike swoosh, you'd know it, or Adidas, you'd know it. Or if I showed you Google, you'd know it. Or Padlet, you'd probably know it. Or WeChat, you definitely know it. Or the Apple logo, you'd know it. But do you know this one? Chances are you don't. You might, but chances are you don't. It's the Hancom logo. It's a word processing program. There's a suite of tools, but they're very, very, very based in Korea. And Koreans all use them all the time, but nobody else in the world uses them. So when my students go abroad, or they want to go work in a different company later, or Koreans go outside of Korea, sometimes it's called the Hermit Kingdom for a reason, they have to use MS Word, they have to use Google Slides or Google Docs, and they don't know how because they're so used to HWP. If you do a search for HWP, most of the hits you get in English are, how do I convert a Hangul word processing file to English, to MS Word rather. That's most of the things that you get. I try to get them out of Korea. I try to get them using tools of like ICT tools that aren't just Korean. And that takes them a minute. It takes them a little while. So how do I do this? Well, I give them tours of the various tools that they know. So they tell me they know Google Docs. I spent in my academic writing course last semester an hour going through the various drop-down menus of Google Docs. And it was the most useful hour I think we had in that entire semester for them, because they were amazed by all the things that Google Docs can do that they didn't know. Things that they would probably know if we were talking about HWP. Give them tours, yeah. And I have them use these tools in a supported way. I have them using Google Docs. I have them using Google Forms. I have them using Slido and Padlet and Kahoot and Socrative, not all at once, obviously. I have them using tools, and wherever I can, I find them where they can't just auto-translate them into Korean. I get them to use these in the classes as a matter of course, but in a supported way. So if they need help with it, if they don't know how to do something, I have little videos or documents that can help them understand what's going on. And the last thing that forces them to be more digitally literate or use that and exploit it is that I don't use paper almost ever. And I believe, again, Pak really talked about that and said, yeah, paper's out. We don't really use it. I don't think I've photocopied anything above 10 pages in the last 4 years, which is good for the environment because it saves trees. And I think that I'm at 1:46 my time, which means I'm pretty much done. So I'd like to open it up to questions now. So you can either type your questions in the chat box or you can unmute yourself and just ask me, whichever. And I see Ramadhani said Parasite was famous in Indonesia. Yes, it was, Ramadhani. It was famous everywhere. We love Parasite. It's great. I see Kotima has her hand up. Hello.
Okay. First, thank you so much for an insightful and easy to understand presentations about digital and visual literacy by Mr. Free. Now let's open the Q&A sessions. For Hotimah, Miss Hotimah Mahmuda, please deliver your questions. You can speak directly to Mr. Free. Okay, please.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Free. Thank you
Hello.
for. Hello. I have a question, sir.
Mm-hmm.
It's boring me a lot. I just want to ask, is the concept of visual literacy same as multimodality, like combinations of multiple sensors or moods? Because we use image, we use pictures, that there is some part of the pictures that students will literate what it is. Because because I am doing a research about multimodality. So create multimodality workbook for students in writing class. So I give them pictures about kitchens, about gardens, about every single picture that they know before. So you say, but it is boring me because multimodality, we need to use sounds, we need to use any kinds of moods. But when we talk about visual literacy, it is the same or not as multimodality? Thank you, sir.
It's a very good question, and I think the one person that I was speaking to about this would say that multimodality is kind of like the whole pie, and the visual literacy is one slice of the pie. Or if you like pizza, you can say it's one slice of pizza. Very, very little is actually just visual. Even infographics, if they have text, it's no longer just visual. So visual literacy, I'd say it's focused in on one particular section of things that are multimodal. Our world is multimodal. One of the best books in the last couple of years that I've read is about Korean cinema, and it analyzes it from a multimodal perspective. So yes, here today I'm talking about A Tale of Two Sisters, and we're looking at the poster. But in order to understand the whole movie, you have to understand the language, you have to understand posture, you have to understand, other aspects of things and sounds, and as you say, everything all goes together. So I would say, again, visual literacy is just more focused on what we're seeing. It's part of it.
Yeah.
You're muted now. I can't hear you.
Mute.
Oh, now you're unmuted. I think you're saying thank you, and I'm going to say you're welcome.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
No, I just say thank you so much for asking my question. So literacy is one of let's say one of multimodality, right, sir?
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
it's one of them.
Hmm.
Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Miss Mahmuda. And the next questions, we have another one from Mr. Saiful Effendi. Please.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay. Good day, Mr. Pri.
Hello.
So, yeah, hello. Okay, okay, nice to see you here. Okay, actually, I have questions about your topic today, talk about digital literacy. And then I am interested in your slide. You say that where do we see is lean spin? And then the questions how do I use technology? And this is the number 4. I don't use paper almost ever. And then based on my experience as a teacher, right now I am teaching based on Androids in my class. And then the problem is because my students always use Android in their teaching and learning process. And of course, when I ask them to write something by their handwriting. So this is really less competence. So how do, as a teacher, we can keep this because we know that the literacy is not only talking about digital literacy but also reading and writing also. So this is the big problem for me, I think, because for 1 year, as my experience as a teacher, I use my teaching process based on the Androids, and then and I don't use paper almost ever in my class. But the problem is comes after when I ask my student to write something by their pen, for example, in the paper. They are stuck and then a little bit confused with I ask them, come on, please write that. But they don't have an idea at all. I think this is the bad effect also from digitalization, or I don't know. Maybe you can give me some tips how to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very interesting and it's a very modern problem, because when we think of writing, we, especially if you're old like I am, we still think of handwriting. But now, in thinking about it and talking about it with other teachers, nowadays when we think about writing, we're actually talking about typing more often than we are talking about handwriting. So I see the problem. Then suddenly people have to write by hand and they don't know how to do it. That's very interesting. I would say, give them some basic printing lessons. So not cursive handwriting, if you know what I mean. Just printing. You have to spend some time doing it. I don't know what else to tell you other than that. If you're interested in orthography and teaching them how to write cursive, you have to spend some time doing it, because it's a matter of just familiarity. When I was in elementary school and then, well, not in middle school, we had lessons every day on writing in cursive and printing and making sure that we were legible. And I know Korean students still have that in Korean, but much less so in English. I'm not sure I can give you really great advice on that, other than to say, get some, if they're using paper, get some basic traceable templates for them to practice their letters on. Let them do that, and have them do that. There's also, if they have tablets, I believe there are programs where the students can trace with their fingers or their pens, so they learn how to write the letters of the alphabet. I think maybe that would be a solution, now that I think about it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pri. Okay,
you're quite welcome.
Okay, is there any more questions from the participants? to ask to Mr. Free.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Time for one last questions. So any questions, please raise your hands. Anyone?
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
I'm just uploading my slides for you so everyone can have them. They should be in the chat now.
Okay, thank you, sir. And maybe I'm going to ask the last questions to you, Mr. Free. Is it okay?
Okay, sure.
Okay. You mentioned that visual literacy. It's like as we know that a lot of our students maybe in the classroom they have like where variations of learning style. Maybe some love to see images, or some of them love to watch videos for learning English, etc. How about if we have the majority of the students in the classroom that they don't really motivated when we give them the visual material like infographic, the poster, like you mentioned. Is there any alternative for them, sir? Thank you.
Other than visual?
Yeah.
Well, let me see. I mean, the other things that I use are very, very short videos sometimes, but I also use texts, like stories. I like stories are quite good. It depends on which class I'm teaching, because there's quite a variety. I teach some in presentation skills, so we'll watch people present things, and then we'll get up and we'll actually act out different things, and we'll do the wrong way to present something, or if we're practicing pronunciation, we practice it too fast or too slow, so they're actually physically doing things as opposed to just looking at something, getting them up, getting them moving around. Just yesterday we were talking about presenting and making sure your voice was loud enough. So I had one student, his voice is very soft. And what I did is I just got him to say hello to me over and over again. And I started very close to him. And then he stayed in the same place, and I moved backwards. And got him to get louder and louder and louder. So yeah, there's a whole lot of things that I do that aren't solely visual. It's just I was focused on that particular aspect of things today.
Okay, so during your teaching, do you integrate like using an app to help your students to improve or to increase their English proficiency in South Korea?
Oh, I do. I use a whole bunch of apps. I use Kakao Talk a lot, which is I think you would use WeChat there. I use Kakao Talk. I use Padlet to get them because they can upload things and then look at each other. They can do peer feedback via that. They can listen to recordings of each other. They can put up links and web pages and all sorts of things. I have them making infographics at some point, so they'll use any number of digital tools that you can make infographics for free. So yeah, I use a lot of different apps, hopefully conscientiously, as I said. So not too many.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Free.
They don't use WeChat. They use WhatsApp, Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry. WhatsApp. Yes, quite right. Thank you, Willie.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Due to the time allocations, well, I think this is the end of the last keynote speaker. Well, let me say thank you for everyone for the questions, and thank you so much, Mr. Free, for giving us such as constructive presentations. We hope to meet you again other occasions. Thank you. Have a great
Thank
day
you.
and be safe.
Thank you.
Okay, Excellency, distinguished guests, educators, students, ladies and gentlemen, we had very productive and inspiring time together. And these keynote speaker sessions of the Second International Conference on Education 2022 with the theme Educational Advancements in the Digital Age, which is organized and hosted by Faculty of Tarbiyah and Teacher Training of Islamic State University Sultan Toha Saifuddin Jambi, is about to come to the very end. I am Ajuzar Riki, representing the organizing committee for the international conference. I apologize if there are some deficiency and error during this event process. And kindly reminder that later this afternoon at 1 p.m. Indonesian time, we are going to continue this international conference with the parallel sessions where many researchers present their research finding. It's going to be fun and full of knowledge, so stay with us because we are going back or we'll be right back at 1 p.m. Thank you and see you later. But first, let me invite all of you, all of the participants, and also the keynote speaker to take documentation for our events today. So I hope all of the participants can open their video camera so I can take the screenshot of everyone here. Thank you. And okay, are you guys ready?
Great job, Michael. Well done. Awesome.
Thank you. 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1. One more time. 3, 2, 1. Smile. And the last one. 3, 2, 1. Smile. Okay, again, thank you very much for all keynote speaker for the super insightful presentations, and thank you for the participants who's joining us today till this time. And remember, we are going to continue this event later at 1 p.m. Indonesian time. So I'll see you again later, everyone. For now, let's have a break. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.